Have you ever been humiliated by someone who was supposed to protect you? It was Christmas Eve, 2017. The dining room smelled like cinnamon and pine, and the chandelier threw soft gold across the table. My stepmother had set out the good china, the kind with the tiny roses, around the rim that no one was allowed to touch when I was growing up. I was standing near the kitchen door, holding a tray of roasted vegetables, still in my Navy uniform, because I'd come straight from the base. I hadn't had time to change. I'd driven 3 hours just to be there. My father was at the head of the table. My half-sister Amanda sat beside him in a dress that probably cost more than my monthly salary. And across from her, my stepmother Patricia was smiling in that way she always did when she wanted everyone to think she was kind. But I knew better. I'd known better since I was 12 years old. I set the tray down, quietly, like I'd learned to do everything in that house. And that's when Amanda looked up at me, her lips curling just slightly, and said, "God, Emma, you look like the help." The room went silent. Not the kind of silence that means people are shocked. The kind that means they're waiting. Waiting to see if someone will laugh. Waiting to see if it's safe. My father didn't say anything. He just reached for his wine. Patricia smiled wider. "Oh, Amanda," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "That's not nice." But she didn't correct her. She didn't defend me. She just kept smiling. And I stood there, holding an empty tray, feeling the weight of every year I'd spent trying to be enough for people who had already decided I was in. Before I tell you why that moment changed everything, let me take you back. I was 7 years old the first time I realized I didn't belong in my own home. It was summer, late August. The kind of heat that made the air shimmer above the driveway. My mother had just died cancer, they said, though I didn't really understand what that meant yet. I just knew she was gone. And suddenly, there was this woman in her place, Patricia. She had perfect nails and a voice that sounded like honey but felt like glass. She moved into our house 3 months after the funeral. Brought her daughter with her. Amanda was 9, blonde, confident, everything I wasn't. My father told me I should be grateful. "Patricia is trying to help us," he said. "You need to be respectful." So I was so respectful I became invisible. I learned to fold my clothes smaller so they wouldn't take up too much space in the closet. I learned to eat faster so I could clear the table before anyone asked. I learned to make myself quiet because quiet girls didn't get in the way. Amanda got piano lessons, I got chores. Amanda got new dresses for school. I got hand-me-downs from Patricia's friends. And when I asked my father if I could join the swim team because I loved the water, loved the way it made me feel weightless, he said, "We can't afford extras right now, sweetheart. Maybe next year," but there was always money for Amanda. Always. I stopped asking. By the time I was 16, I'd learned to survive on the edges of my own life. I worked weekends at the grocery store, saved every dollar I could. I told myself it didn't matter, that I didn't need them, that I was going to get out, and I did. I joined the Navy 2 days after I turned 18. Signed the papers in a recruiting office that smelled like stale coffee and ambition. My father didn't come to my graduation from boot camp. He said it was too far. Patricia said it wasn't really a family event, but I didn't need them there. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't someone's burden. I wasn't the girl who didn't quite fit. I was Petty Officer Emma Sinclair. I had a purpose. I had a rank. I had people who respected me not because of who my family was, but because of what I could do. I spent 8 years at sea. I learned to navigate by the stars. I learned to fix engines in the dark. I learned what it meant to be part of something bigger than myself. And when I came home, when I finally had leave for the holidays, I told myself it would be different. That maybe after all this time, they'd see me differently too. I was wrong. Have you ever walked into a room and felt like a stranger in your own story? That's what it felt like, standing in that dining room on Christmas Eve. The house had been renovated since I'd last visited. New floors, new furniture. Everything looked expensive. Everything looked like Patricia. My father hugged me when I arrived, but it was the kind of hug you give someone you're obligated to love. Loose, brief. He asked how the Navy was, but he didn't wait for the answer. Amanda barely looked up from her phone. And Patricia smiled and said, "Oh, Emma, you made it." I wasn't sure you'd have time. like I was an afterthought. I brought gifts, small things, a scarf for Patricia, a book for Amanda, a bottle of scotch for my father, the kind he used to drink when my mother was alive. I thought maybe it would remind him, maybe it would bring him back just a little. He thanked me, set it aside, didn't open it. And then we sat down for dinner. Patricia had made everything from scratch, she said. Though I knew for a fact she'd hired a caterer because I'd seen the van in the driveway. But no one corrected her. No one ever did. Amanda talked about her job at a marketing firm, about her boyfriend who worked in finance, about the vacation they were planning to Bali, and everyone listened. Everyone smiled. Everyone acted like she was the center of the universe. When Patricia asked me how things were going, I started to tell her about my deployment, about the port we'd visited in Japan, about the work we were doing to support humanitarian efforts in the Pacific. She interrupted me. That's nice, dear. Could you bring out the vegetables? They're in the oven. And just like that, I wasn't a guest. I was the help. So I got up, I put on the oven mitts, I brought out the tray. And that's when Amanda said it. God, Emma, you look like the help. The words hung in the air like smoke. I looked at my father, waiting, hoping, needing him to say something, anything. He took a sip of wine. And that's the moment I stopped being who they thought I was. Stay with me until the end, it's worth it. I set the tray down. I took off the oven mitts. I folded them neatly on the counter, the way I'd been trained to fold everything in the Navy, precise, controlled. And I walked back to the table. I didn't sit down. I'm sorry, I said. My voice was calm, steady. I think I need to go. Patricia's smile faltered. Oh, Emma, don't be dramatic. Amanda didn't mean anything by it, but Amanda was smirking. She absolutely meant it. My father finally looked at me. Emma, sit down, it's Christmas. I shook my head. No, I don't think I will. I picked up my coat, my keys, and I walked toward the door. That's when Patricia stood up. You know, Emma, she said, her voice sharp now, you've always been so sensitive, always playing the victim. Maybe if you'd tried a little harder to be part of this family, things would be different. I stopped, turned, and for the first time in my life, I didn't swallow my words. I tried, I said. For years. I tried to be small enough, quiet enough, grateful enough, but it was never about effort, was it? It was about the fact that I wasn't hers. I looked at Amanda. That I wasn't you. My father stood up. Emma, that's enough. No, I said. It's not. And I left. I drove back to the base in silence. The highway was empty. The sky was black. And I cried for the first time in years. Not because they'd hurt me, but because I finally let go of the hope that they ever would love me the way I needed them to. But I didn't know it yet. The world was about to change. 3 weeks later, I got a phone call. It was from a lawyer, a man named Richard Holbrook. He said he'd been trying to reach me for months, but I'd been deployed and my contact information had been outdated. He told me my mother's father, my grandfather, had passed away. I barely remembered him. He'd lived in Vermont. I'd met him maybe twice when I was little. My mother had been estranged from him for reasons she never explained. But he'd left a will. And in that will, he'd left everything to me. Not to my father, not to Patricia, not to Amanda, to me. A house, land, investments. The estate was worth just over $2 million. I didn't believe it at first. I thought it was a mistake. Or a scam, but Richard sent me the documents. Official, notarized, legal. My grandfather had written a letter. It was included with the will. I read it sitting on my bunk, the paper trembling in my hands. Emma, it said, I know we didn't have much time together, and for that I am sorry. Your mother and I had our differences, but she was my daughter, and I loved her. When she died, I wanted to reach out to you. But your father made it clear I wasn't welcome. He told me you were fine, that you didn't need me. I didn't fight him. I should have. I regret that more than you'll ever know, but I kept track of you. I know you joined the Navy. I know you've made something of yourself, and I'm so proud of you. This estate is yours, not because you need it, but because you deserve it. You are your mother's daughter, and that means you are stronger than you know. Don't let anyone make you small again. With love, Grandpa Thomas. I read it 3 times, and then I cried again, but this time it wasn't from sadness. It was from relief. And that was the moment everything shifted. I didn't tell my father right away. I didn't tell anyone. I hired Richard to handle the estate transfer. I went through the legal process quietly, methodically, the way I did everything. But eventually, word got out. My father called me. His voice was tight, controlled. "Emma, we need to talk." I met him at a coffee shop near the base. Neutral ground. He looked older than I remembered. Tired. He sat down across from me and said, "Why didn't you tell me?" "Tell you what?" "About the inheritance." I stirred my coffee. "Because it's mine." His jaw tightened. "Your grandfather and I didn't get along, Emma, but he was still family. I should have been informed." "You were informed," I said. "By his lawyer, after the will was read. That's how these things work." He leaned forward. "Emma, don't be petty. That money could help all of us. Amanda's trying to buy a house. Patricia and I are planning for retirement. We're family." I looked at him. Really looked at him. And I saw it. The same look he'd had when I'd asked about swim lessons. The same look he'd had when I'd graduated boot camp. The look that said I was only valuable when I was useful. "No," I said. "We're not." He blinked. "What? We're not family." "Not the way you mean it. Family doesn't make you feel like you have to earn love. Family doesn't let you be humiliated at Christmas dinner. Family doesn't ignore you for 18 years and then show up asking for money." His face went red. "How dare you?" "I'm done, Dad." My voice was quiet, steady. "I'm done trying to be enough for people who decided I wasn't before I even had a chance. The inheritance is mine. The house is mine. And my life is mine." I stood up. He grabbed my wrist. "Emma, please." "Don't do this." I looked down at his hand, then back at him. "Let go," I said. He did. And I walked away. Have you ever felt something like this? That moment when you finally stop apologizing for taking up space? I didn't keep the house in Vermont. I sold it, used the money to finish my degree. Started a foundation in my mother's name to help military families with educational expenses. I didn't do it for recognition. I did it because I finally understood something my grandfather had tried to tell me. Strength isn't about being loud. It's about knowing your worth even when no one else does. I didn't hear from my father again for 2 years. And when I did, it was a short email. "I'm sorry," it said. I should have done better. I didn't respond, not because I was angry, but because some apologies come too late to change the past. They can only acknowledge it. Patricia never reached out. Neither did Amanda. And that's okay, because I realized something important. Their rejection wasn't a reflection of me. It was a reflection of them. I stayed in the Navy, made Chief Petty Officer, got stationed in San Diego, started dating a guy named Marcus who didn't care about my last name or my inheritance or anything except who I was when I woke up in the morning. We got married on a beach at sunset. No big ceremony. Just us and a handful of friends. And when people ask me now about my family, I tell them the truth. I built my own. Share this with someone who would understand. There's a picture on my wall now. It's from my retirement ceremony, 20 years of service. I'm in my dress whites, standing at attention, and Marcus is beside me, holding our daughter Lily. She's 3 years old in the photo. Her hair is in pigtails. She's holding a tiny American flag. When I look at that picture, I don't think about the dining room. I don't think about the oven mitts or the smirk on Amanda S.'s face or the way my father looked away. I think about the girl I used to be. The one who folded her clothes small and ate fast and tried so hard to be invisible. And I think about the woman I became. The one who learned to navigate by the stars. The one who fixed engines in the dark. The one who finally understood that the only approval she ever needed was her own. Truth does not shout. It simply waits to be heard. Respect doesn't erase the past. It doesn't undo the years I spent feeling small. It doesn't bring back the Christmases I missed or the hugs I never got or the words I needed to hear. But it does something else. It teaches you how to breathe again. To stand in a room full of people who never believed in you and realize you don't need them to anymore. To walk away from tables where you were never really welcome and build your own. To understand that inheritance isn't just about money or houses or land. It's about choosing what you carry forward and what you finally set down. My grandfather gave me an estate, but my mother gave me something more valuable. She gave me her strength, her quiet resilience, her refusal to disappear, and I pass that on to Lily now. I teach her that her voice matters, that she doesn't have to make herself small. That love isn't something you earn by being perfect. It's something you deserve simply because you exist. If stories like this remind you what dignity feels like, subscribe. You belong here. Sometimes late at night, when the house is quiet and Marcus is asleep and Lily is dreaming in her room down the hall, I think about that Christmas dinner. I think about the chandelier and the china and the way the light fell across the table, and I realize something. I wasn't the help. I was the one who walked away. And that made all the difference. And don't miss the next story. It is something truly unforgettable.